Hitler's outstanding defense mechanism is one commonly called projection. It's a technique by which the ego of an individual defends itself against unpleasant impulses, tendencies, or characteristics by denying their existence in himself while attributing them to others. From a psychological point of view, it's not too far-fetched to suppose that as the perversion developed and became more disgusting to Hitler's ego, its demands were disowned and projected upon the Jew.
At this time in 1943, Lange had no idea that Hitler's anti-Semitism would create the horrors of the Holocaust. For Lange, Hitler's hatreds were driven by fear and insecurity. As Dr. Bloch confirmed, Hitler was a weak, frail little boy. But there was one thing that marked him out as special in his family. He survived. His 3 brothers didn't. They all died young. And that allowed Lange to make an important clinical deduction.
The thought of death is inconceivable to small children. But in Hitler's case, it was a living issue. And the fears of his mother, that she might lose him as well, were in all likelihood communicated to him.
And what does this mean for Hitler?
Well, in his immature way, he probably wondered why the others had died while he continued to live. And it is natural for a child to draw the conclusion that he would be favored in some way, or that he was chosen to live for a particular purpose, that he was under divine protection.
Vor uns liegt Deutschland, in uns marschiert Deutschland und hinter uns kommt Deutschland.
This is what Freud called the Messiah complex. There's no question that Hitler believed he had Christ-like qualities.
It's really very important to understand Hitler, the Messiah, Hitler, the Savior. Indeed, he relished when people say, Heil Hitler, the Savior of the German people. And he identified, in fact, with Christ. But not Christ, the nurturing, loving Christ that we know of. Christ the fighter, who had to fight against the Jews to keep from being destroyed.
Lange wanted more time to finish his profile, but Donovan and the Secret Service pressured him to complete the report. So, 5 months after he started, Lange had to commit everything to paper. After analyzing Hitler's character, he made a number of startling predictions. He said that as the war went against him, Hitler would become more neurotic, and his famous rages would intensify and become more frequent. He also predicted that there would be an assassination attempt by the disaffected officer corps. A year after the report was completed, von Stauffenberg, a colonel in Hitler's staff, tried to murder the Fuhrer by placing a bomb under his table at his Eastern Front headquarters.
The bomb-blasted room where an explosion nearly got Hitler. See's Nazi film pictures the scene. German generals plotted to kill the arch-war criminal and make peace, but Hitler was late in arriving here, and in the bomb burst he was only injured.
Hitler survived, and von Stauffenberg and the other plotters were rounded up and executed. But Lange also made a number of more psychologically profound predictions.
His public appearances will become less and less because he is unable to face a critical audience.
On the face of it, this prediction seems illogical. Hitler exploited the propaganda benefits of encouraging a cult of personality. It might therefore seem reasonable to expect that when the country's back was against the wall, he'd be out rousing the troops. In fact, Hitler did the exact opposite. He became more reclusive, just as Lange predicted. On the other hand, Winston Churchill made a point of being visible when the war was going against him.
I think it's really quite important to distinguish Churchill from Hitler psychologically. He had the capacity to rouse the nation at its darkest hour, but never seeing such a total identity with the nation that an attack upon the nation diminished him. And what we saw with Hitler, who was carrying within him this messianic self-concept, where it was history had written his role to be the most important leader in the world, when evidence started coming back that was undeniable, that this was not to be, that the tide had turned, this was quite shattering for him. Because don't forget, that messianic self-concept was the compensatory overlay for the profound void within.
Lange was convinced that the conflict would culminate with the complete destruction of Germany. There would be no surrender, no peace negotiations.
The course he will follow will almost certainly be the one that seems to be the surest road to immortality, and that, at the same time, wreaks the greatest vengeance on a world he despises.
In the final months of the conflict, Hitler made it known that total destruction was the Allies' only option if he was to be defeated.
Lange's prediction that Hitler will bring Germany crumbling down around him does, of course, turn out literally to be right, because in the last weeks of the war, Hitler issues his famous scorched earth directive, where the party and the military have to destroy everything. The Allies mustn't get anything. He doesn't mind now about the German people. The German people will starve. I mean, they've let him down. In this sense, I mean, Lange is right, that here is somebody who only really thinks in black and white, life and death. And if you lose the struggle of the races, if you lose the struggle for existence, you don't deserve anything else. Now, whether this is something driven by the nature of Hitler's own psyche, whether this is something which would only have happened with him and not with somebody else, well, you're right, but then nobody pretends that Hitler was in any sense a normal politician.
Lange then made a final prediction about the fate of the Fuhrer.
From what we know of his psychology, the most likely possibility is that he will commit suicide. It's probably true that he has an inordinate fear of death, but being a psychopath, he could undoubtedly screw himself up into the Superman character and perform the deed.
Remarkably, Lange made this prediction 2 years before the war ended.